What is going on, pro wrestling fans? Welcome back to another post-show reaction for Monday Night Raw. My name is Jose Ramos Jr. and we just got done watching a stellar main event between two of the very best that Monday Night Raw has to offer in Sami Zayn and the World Heavyweight Champion, Gunther. Now obviously, this is a matchup that has been building over the course of the last couple months, a story that reaches all the way back to WrestleMania 40 but has so many layers on top of layers. Obviously, we know that Gunther, being the world champion, wants to prove that he can defeat anyone and everybody that is in his way. Yet Sami Zayn, week after week, had been challenging Gunther to this world title match, but he kept pushing him off to the side. He kept neglecting to give him an answer, and then finally he would tell him no. Week after week he would say no, and we finally found out it's because of that level of, doubt that Gunther had, because Sami Zayn is the only man to have pinned Gunther, and that being at WrestleMania 40 when he lost the Intercontinental Championship to Sami Zayn. Now, obviously this matchup, with that already in mind, is a match that's already selling. You got my attention, you got other people's attention as well, but then on top of that, you add the fact that it had crown jewel implications, being that now as a part of a yearly tradition at the crown jewel event, we will have champion versus champion to crown the crown jewel champion. We know that Cody Rhodes is the WWE champion, so we were just awaiting who would be the world heavyweight champion. Would it be Gunther, who Cody Rhodes has a past with at a couple Royal Rumbles ago when he won the Royal Rumble match, or would it be Sami Zayn, who's been a close friend and confidant of Cody Rhodes, especially during the Bloodline saga? But we got our answer. Obviously, Sami Zayn and Gunther went to do battle. Again, a great matchup, a fun matchup, and the ending, although predictable, I think protects both individuals. Gunther and Sami Zayn just know how to work with each other. There were times there where we thought that Gunther was going to get a win early on. Wasn't the case, obviously, because Sami Zayn has been constantly presented as this underdog, someone that can fight from underneath and try to prove everyone that yes, he is that damn good. Ultimately, that wouldn't be the case though, because like I said, it was a little bit predictable, but it was the right call. Gunther fends off Sami Zayn and his offense, his defiant offense, giving him powerbomb after powerbomb. We even had a kick out at one, which the WWE doesn't really do all that often. But ultimately, Gunther places the sleeper hold on Sami Zayn to the point where Sami can no longer react, can no longer provide some sort of reflex that would indicate that he can continue the matchup. He would pass out. Sami Zayn would pass out, and the official had no choice but to award the matchup to Gunther. So he's still the World Heavyweight Champion, and it is official now, the main event probably, right? Why wouldn't it be the main event? Gunther versus Cody Rhodes, champion versus champion, to crown the inaugural Crown Jewel Champion. I thought this was a very fitting match to have, especially as the main event of Monday Night Raw. And might I add, keep in mind, this was the first Monday Night Raw that was strictly 2 hours for the first time in 12 years. The last time we had a 2-hour Raw, it was the week before Raw 1000, which initially began the 3-hour stretch. And I gotta say, time really flew by. Like, I feel like this episode of Raw it felt so short. It felt shorter than an episode of NXT, than an episode of SmackDown, and those are all 2-hour shows. Monday Night Raw, segment after segment, it continued to flow. It continued to have this overarching storyline. And then the main theme of this episode of Raw, I think, is all about friends turning into foes. And since we talk about Cody Rhodes versus Gunther, Cody Rhodes would come out from the back, obviously, to have his little face-off with Gunther as a way to promote Crown Jewel. But the WWE did acknowledge, albeit partially, they did acknowledge the attack by Kevin Owens against Cody Rhodes after the Bad Blood event that would take place in front of his tour bus. Now, I like this approach. I know there's some people who online have their opinions. I know I do. But they have their opinions that, this wasn't the right call. You should have done it in front of the camera. You should have done it on TV. But I think this was a great way to use social media to their advantage. You see, the WWE, at least for now, we haven't seen any actual footage that has been provided by the WWE. They pretty much relied on the fans, on them having their cell phones out, sharing it to Instagram, sharing it on TikTok, on Twitter, wherever the case may be. They solely relied on that. And I think that's a smart way to get people invested. People are online, no matter what. Whether it's all those other social media apps that I mentioned, YouTube, such as this platform, people are always connected. And this essentially is like free publicity. It is now a way to garner our attention to tune in and see what's the fallout, what's the next step in this storyline. But that's for Friday Night SmackDown, and obviously we'll get to that when we get to Friday's post-show reaction. But for Monday Night Raw, the only storyline wasn't just the whole Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens. We also opened up the show with CM Punk. CM Punk, who is fresh off of his hellacious matchup, his victory over Drew McIntyre inside the Hell in a Cell, and delivered a promo that would suggest that he's going to take some time away, and I think rightfully so. He had a matchup at SummerSlam, Bash in Berlin, and Bad Blood, 3 straight PLEs. Let's give him a break here. Let's give him some time to recuperate and get him ready for this next storyline. Now, we don't know who he's going to be facing, but I can only imagine that pretty soon we are going to be ramping up the Seth Rollins and CM Punk storyline, because after CM Punk's kind of speech to the crowd, thanking his fans, thanking his haters, Seth Rollins would interrupt him and even give him a little bit of that shoulder bump, as he passed by to head to the ring. That storyline, I think, is the premier story for Monday Night Raw. We knew that that was the direction they were going to take for WrestleMania 40. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because look at how everything turned out, CM Punk would sustain that injury at the Royal Rumble event and sideline him until this past summer. But we know that this is direction. Seth Rollins and CM Punk, that is going to be one of your premier feuds on Monday Night Raw. And the best part about it is if it were to happen at WrestleMania 40, it would have been for the World Heavyweight Championship. Whereas now, we have developed enough equity in Gunther as the World Champion. We have stretched this storyline out far enough for Punk and Rollins that we now have, rather than one key feud on Monday Night Raw, you now have 2. And whenever you have a sense of variety in wrestling, you can't go wrong, because now it's just more storylines on top of storylines to get invested in and to ensure that fans will either attend or watch these PLEs. That's one thing the WWE is excelling at. But sticking with Seth Rollins, he did come into the ring. He would have his little moment with the crowd, welcoming him back, allowing them to sing his song. And his attention right now, obviously, is on Big Bronson Reed, who cost him a couple months of his career. That's why we saw Seth Rollins return during the last Monster Standing matchup, which I might add was a fun matchup. If you haven't seen my reaction to that match, make sure you check out last week's post-show reaction to that episode of Raw. But Seth Rollins obviously has his eyes set on Bronson Reed, said, "You pick the time, you pick the place, we'll have the match." I think that's a matchup worthy of Crown Jewel, of a big event like that. I think that would be a great opportunity to have it. Wouldn't be surprised if they had it on Monday Night Raw. As you see, SmackDown and Raw, they kind of have their episodes loaded with matches and storylines. That's why these PLEs often have 5 matches per card. But Seth Rollins, again, eyes are on Bronson Reed. And another thing about Raw being 2 hours, we talked about this on a previous podcast episode, the J Area podcast, of course, airing every Monday morning. We talk about how they're going to be going forward with Monday Night Raw now that it's seemingly going to be 2 hours. We're going to be seeing alternating storylines. We didn't see guys like Braun Strowman, like Bronson Reed, the Wyatt Six, Drew McIntyre, Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest. We didn't see a lot of guys. There were a lot of names that were missing on this card. Now, wasn't in attendance. Maybe they were there for the dark matches. Don't know. But I think that's what we're going to be seeing. We're going to be seeing alternating storylines every week. For example, we saw Sheamus and Pete Dunne having their Donnybrook matchup. I don't think we're going to see them next week. I do think that was a good match. Sheamus and Pete Dunne, one of the best that the WWE has, especially when it comes to that physical matchup. Again, entertaining. I think now we're probably going to move past it. I think that storyline's finished. I think personally, I kind of wanted Pete Dunne to win that one. I thought Sheamus didn't necessarily need the win. Sheamus is Sheamus. He's a future Hall of Famer and a made man. But I think it would have benefited Pete Dunne to have come out defeating the like of Sheamus and kind of carving a spot for him on the roster, as well as elevating him on the totem pole that is the mid-card scene. But one matchup that I think really did deliver was the opener. It was Jey Uso, who was the Intercontinental Champion, defending that title against Xavier Woods. And again, another solid matchup. It was crisp, it was clean. These are guys that have chemistry with one another because of their time with the Usos versus the New Day for the tag titles. A lot of history there. But the story is, of course, Jey Uso, arguably the most over babyface on Monday Night Raw, facing Xavier Woods, who is having a little bit of an identity crisis when it comes to whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. He, of course, has had his issues with Kofi Kingston, had their differences, and he claims that, I'm going to call the shots. Basically playing quarterback. I'm going to call the shots. I'm going to call the plays. Unfortunately, wasn't able to defeat Jey Uso. They had this great spot to end the matchup where Xavier Woods was on the turnbuckle, made his way in the middle of the rope. It almost went for like a springboard elbow, but it would be countered by Jey Uso with an amazing super kick a la Shawn Michaels in 2005 when he hit Shelton Benjamin. I watched it and I'm thinking immediately that's probably going to be a landmark moment for Jey Uso in highlight packages or promo pieces. I wouldn't be surprised if they use that clip, going forward. I think that's going to be one of his defining videos or defining moments during this babyface run. But it would be afterwards that the storyline would progress. And that was another theme on this episode of Monday Night Raw. A lot of storylines just progressed. We kept moving forward. Nothing huge, nothing, earth shattering or world changing happened on this episode of Raw. It was just a way to keep it going. Keep it going. It would be after the matchup. Jey Uso offers his hand, shakes Kofi Kingston's hand, offers the same to Xavier Woods, who just brushes him off. And then we get a sneak attack by Braun Breaker, who we thought turned babyface, but apparently isn't turning babyface because he jumps Jey Uso. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods have this moment very similar to Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns at Bad Blood, where they look at each other like, what, are we going to help him? But the parallels, I love it. The parallels where the bloodline, rather Roman and Jimmy, they're on the same page. These guys aren't. So Kofi tries to go help Jey Uso, to no avail. Braun Breaker leaves everyone laid out. Braun Breaker still very much wanting an opportunity at the Intercontinental Championship, but I'm all for it. Him and Jey, give me more. Love it. I love it. This episode of Raw, like I said, flew by. One issue, rather concern, I should say, that was centered around Monday Night Raw being that it was moving to 2 hours, was going to be the treatment of the women's division. I didn't know where they were going to go with it. We saw Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, but they weren't in the arena. They were just really a backstage segment as they were arriving to the scene and then ultimately left. So what did they do? They got a 10-woman tag team matchup, eerily similar to the past, eras in WWE, where you just got a collection of the women and just threw them in a matchup. Now they did give them a couple segments worth of a match, and it was back and forth, competitive. Everyone got their spots to shine. It was a matchup that included Alba Fire, Isla Dawn. We had the PFC, which is Shayna Baszler, Sonya Deville, and Zoe Stark, who would lose to the babyface team of Natalya, Zelina Vega, Katana Chance, and Carter, and Lyra Valkyria, of course. That one is, I'll be honest with you, that's a little bit worrisome. This storyline, though, I think it's away with it because the PFC has been running roughshod all over the women's division. So you can afford to get everyone together and have a multi-person matchup. But I know that's one complaint that might come up, is that WWE might just be throwing the matches together. I trust the process. I look at a show like SmackDown, which was able to have multiple women's segments, whether it was a dumpster matchup, whether it was Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton, Bayley and Nia Jax's face-off. They do have the capability of providing quality segments for the women, but for the case of this first episode of Raw, shaky start for me. Shaky start. But yeah, no, obviously a fun episode of Monday Night Raw. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A little bit of housekeeping here. Obviously, you know that I run the YouTube channel here. We follow the J Area Podcast, all things professional wrestling. But if you are interested in the gaming world and the streaming world, be sure to check out my brother Jared Ramos. He's going to be having a live stream tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. He will be streaming the newest installment or release of Silent Hill 2. Go ahead and check that out on Twitch. The link will be in the description. And obviously, for the time being, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this post-show reaction to Monday Night Raw. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, comment down below your favorite parts of Monday Night Raw, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content that I provide here on YouTube. And don't forget to check out the live stream for my brother Jared on Twitch. Again, the link will be in the description. And of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you guys for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.